Whenever I bring up the subject of journaling in a conversation, I usually get a frown. And the reason I think for that is that some people just either hate or love writing things down. And so if you're in the hate camp, I want to ask you to give this episode a listen, because we're not only going to talk about some of the benefits that come from journaling, but also I'll talk about some tips and tools that you can use to make journaling fun again. Stay tuned. Well, this is Tech Tips for Seniors, a show with tips for seniors, or anyone really, on how to better use technology such as smartphones and computers in your daily lives. And I'm your host, Bruce Ciotto. Well, today's show is on journaling, and in order to talk about journaling, I want to mention this tree that I have in front of my house. And it's a tree with a canopy that extends about maybe 2 or 3 feet, possibly even a little more, beyond the roofline of the house that's across the street from me. And I sit in my office, look out the window, and I can see that tree quite easily. And I stare at it from time to time, day to day, week to week. And I look sometime at the tree and I say, I wonder if that tree is growing. Because a lot of times, when I get out there, a week or two later, or even a day or two later, I'm not seeing any changes. The tree looks pretty much the same. And so I went back to look in the Google mapping database, because you can do that. And I went to gather up a picture of what it looked like across the street from me 7-8 years ago. Well, by golly, that same exact tree was in that picture. And you know what? The tree has grown significantly from over that period. When I look at that picture from 7-8 years ago, it's kind of a tiny, scrawny tree. The canopy of the tree is small, and the leaves are not very thick. And maybe it just extends to touching the roofline of the house across the street from me. And so I noticed that change, and I say, wow, that's pretty dramatic. Well, why am I telling you this? Well, because journaling can be the same way. If you have a way of tracking something, you'll be able to tell whether you're getting to where you're going. This is actually true from Scripture as well. I take a look at Psalm chapter 1, and it says that those who trust in the Lord delight in the law of the Lord, and they're meditating on it day and night. They're like trees that are planted along a riverbank, bearing fruit in each season, and their leaves never wither, and they prosper, or they have success in what they do. So if you're going someplace, you need a way to stay on track. Now, for me, that takes shape on a daily basis when I travel someplace in my car. The first thing I do when I get in the car is I turn on my GPS and I program the device. This is built into my phone, but the mapping software, so that it navigates me to the place where I'm heading. And when I do that, I will sometimes still miss the target, at least on a street that I'm trying to turn on. I'll miss a turn here or there. I still get to the destination of where I'm going, but when I make this turn, either before or after the one that it was recommending that I take, the GPS will recalibrate, and it will navigate me to the destination I was going to anyway. And so that's how we get tracking done when we're traveling. But how do we get tracking as we're traveling through our lives? Well, one of the ways to do so is to take a form of inventory of how you're doing. And you can do this on an ongoing basis, where you assess what happens during the course of a day. I've had that happen, where I'll say something that I just say to myself, boy, that didn't land the way I intended it to in my conversation. And so if my pride doesn't get in the way, I'll make an apology and I'll say, "Ooh, I didn't mean that," or "It didn't come out the way I intended to say it." Well, that's an ongoing inventory, but there's also the concept of a daily inventory. And a daily inventory can be anything that you would like, but for me, I use prompts. And I'll put some of the prompts that I currently use into the show notes of this show so that you can steal them if you like. They're just a set of questions. And when I look at those questions, I'll answer them honestly in my own way. And sometimes I don't answer every single question, but I will answer as many questions as I feel are relevant at that time. And then I'll jot them down and I'll put them into my journal. Now, another form of inventory when you are doing a regular journaling is to go and look at your journals over a periodic basis. And so I will take a look maybe over the last quarter, and I'll take 2 or 3 hours, go to a coffee shop and sit down with a notebook, and I'll make observations about the journaling entries that I've done. And sometimes I'll see recurring themes that show up or things that I want to adjust my course for. Maybe ask myself a different question the next time. Or I might want to put something into my practice of life that helps me to keep on course a little bit better to where I really want to go in life. So these are the 3 kinds of tracking or ongoing inventory methods that I use as what I would call my journaling. Now, sometimes I just start with a prompt and then I'll elaborate with a more lengthy answer and just go on talking because it's helped me to spawn some thoughts about how my day had really come down and how I really wanted it to go. And so those are the ways that journaling can work for you. Of course, you don't need anything quite as formal as this. You can just write down whatever's on your mind if you are such a creative that's the way it works for you. But for me, I kind of need prompts. I need something to keep me on a disciplined schedule. So what are some of the ways that you do journaling? How can this be done? Well, first off, you don't have to get fancy with technology on this one. You can use a notebook and something to write with, a pen or a pencil. And you can just write into this notebook what you're thinking or what's on your mind or how you did compared to some prompt question that you want. And that is enough to get yourself going. Don't get fancy if you don't have to. But if you are a techie type, and some of the people who watch the show want to learn about tech tips, of course, there are some apps that I want to talk about briefly. The first is that either with Apple or Android, the operating systems both have built into them basic journaling apps, which will give you the ability to make an entry on a daily or whatever interval of cadence that you've built. And the Apple one is just called Journal. The Google app is called Google Journal. So no big surprises there. But those are apps that are free. They come with your phone and they can work with you for you in order to just have journaling on a regular basis when and if you carry your phone around with you and you just to sit down and you feel like you want to make an entry. If you want to get a little bit fancier, you can look at some of the apps that are out there. Some of the leadership in the ministry that I serve in have talked about the recovery app called My 10th Step. And if you're doing ongoing daily inventory, this is one app you might want to consider looking at. It's didn't work for me. I gave it a try and played around with it, but I've heard other people who have had great success with it. So give it a try. If it's free and you can give it a use. If you're interested in the app that I use that I found a great deal of success with, and I'm not promoting this, but I just happen to like it. It's called Day One. And Day One is a very robust journaling app. It is a subscription-based application, so meaning you have to pay on an annual basis for it, but it's pretty reasonable. I think it's like $40 a year. And during that period of time, you can use that on either your smartphone, your tablet, or on your computer. All the journal entries stay in sync with them. They are encrypted, so you have protection if you choose to keep them very private. And then you can use those journal entries to review them. The one big benefit that I find with day one that helps me is I can upload my own personal templates of prompts that I like to ask myself every day. So I create a daily template that I can pull up for the next day, and I can get ready for tomorrow excuse me, by loading up the template for then. Okay. So in wrap up, I would suggest that you make an action plan, because these are a lot of changes and a lot of suggestions, and sometimes people dive in and they get frustrated. This is why journaling may not be popular to people, because I'm going to go gangbusters and I'm going to be the best journaler. I'm going to do this every day. And then 3 days later, it starts to trail off. So my suggestions are these. Start small, just a few minutes and just a few days a week. And maybe just write one thing that happened to you down. You don't need to get fancy with all the prompts. Just start to see if you can't get into the cadence by keeping it real easy and real simple. Remember that starting a new habit of any kind takes time, so be kind to yourself. But learn to listen and to ponder. And just like the verses we read in Psalm chapter 1, when we learn how to meditate, how we learn how to ponder on the things that are of God and the things that we want to do in our lives, we can see that kind of change happening. Well, thanks for joining me for Tech Tips for Seniors. If you found this episode helpful, please be sure to share it with a friend and leave me a review online. If you've done that already, thank you so much. And be sure to stay tuned for our next episode of Tech Tips for Seniors, or anyone really. Take care.